welcome everybody. The Fix for New York podcast. Thank you so much for y'all patience. I know y'all been waiting. I've been getting hit up on the phone already. Like, hey, when are you starting? See, I even have it right there, sharing it to everybody. People were telling me, hey, don't forget to send me the link. Blah blah blah. Before I get into more of an explanation, I would like to introduce the amazing. This man right here is gonna be a legend in the future if he's not already. I swear to God, they need to build a statue for you. They have to give you your own plaque in the NRA Hall of Fame, in the Gun Owners of America Hall of Fame, in the Firearms Policing Coalition. All these great Second Amendment bodies. The owner of Gun for Hire Range and NRA board member, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Anthony Colandro, people, let's go.
Welcome to
The Fix for New York podcast. And I just want to let people know when I talk about, the Fix for New York, it's not only New York. But the thing is, New York, and I'm pretty sure you could agree, OG. Oh, these people even started drumming. They got so happy.
nice.
They got so happy. But even you could agree, OG. New York City, arguably the most infringed city in the United States.
Definitely New York County, the 5 boroughs.
Okay.
New York State, not so much. But New York, New Jersey, California are pretty much fighting for the top spot of taking your civil rights away.
Yeah, it's between us and California, correct?
Yes, correct.
So, when I tell people the fix for New York is simply because if you're able to fix New York, the spillover effect will be crazy, right or wrong. People,
Correct.
they'll start looking like, oh my God, like it passed in New York City along with the state, but especially the city because that's what people focus on worldwide. Hey, they changed their laws. They went more constitutional and there's no chaos. Let's see if we can even make it more lax throughout the other states, right or wrong.
You're absolutely right. The problem is you have anti-gun politicians that do not think that we, the people, the third tier, should have firearms to defend ourselves.
Exactly, and this comes from a very long time of not paying attention to voting, correct? Not paying attention to people running for office, the right candidates, and holding them to a standard of being constitutional servants to the public.
They're not public servants anymore. They're public masters. Let's face it. They're our masters. They're above us. I talk about this all the time. We have 3 tiers in this country. We have the political class and the rich elites, Hollywood, billionaires, millionaires. Then we have the criminals, or the second tier. And the third tier on the bottom is the law-abiding, tax-paying citizens. They don't care about us.
And the third tier is the tier that gets screwed over the most.
We get screwed over all the time. And, we say what happens in New Jersey doesn't stay in New Jersey. What happens in New York doesn't stay in New York. When they pass these crappy laws, other states look at them and go, maybe we should try that here.
Exactly,
And,
yes.
and it happens all the time. You have rich people like Michael Bloomberg, who doesn't believe anybody should have a gun for self-defense, and he's surrounded by 12 armed people, lives in gated communities.
The hypocrisy.
And our politicians are protected by police officers and private security that we, the taxpayers, pay for, but yet we are not allowed to have a gun to exercise our Second Amendment right. The Second Amendment was not written for deer hunting.
Exactly, it's up there as well, folks.
The Second Amendment was written for us to protect ourselves and to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government.
Mm-hmm.
So you wonder why the government wants to take our guns away.
Mm-hmm. And it's exactly, I use this example a lot. Would you be willing to give somebody, let's say $10, if they approach you in such a very desperate manner, like, hey man, you got $10? You're gonna be like, whoa, wait, what's going on here? In contrast to, I apologize to interrupt you, sir. I'm going through a hardship right now. Is there any way you could bless me with $10? We'll exchange contact information, and when I get up on my feet, I'll be able to reimburse you the $10 you blessed me with today.
Much different approach.
Exactly.
Sure.
These politicians, what I notice about them is a desperation approach. They capitalize on any little event that occurs, any little mass shooting, any negligent discharge, any suicide. They try to lump it all together, and it's a desperational move when they're like, oh, we have to do something about this, and the only solution is gun control. They never talk about restoring firearm safety courses within the school curriculum, encouraging more range safety officers or firearms instructors to visit the schools or even host public events.
Well, with the media, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So they want the shock value. The NRA has been offering Eddie Eagle gun safety training for 30 years in the United States, but most schools in anti-gun states will not allow us to teach the class there. They'd rather be an ostrich with their head in the ground and turn a blind eye to it. And I always like this term that they use is gun violence. So what exactly is gun violence? So if I hit somebody with my car, that's automobile violence?
Exactly.
If I tried to run you over on purpose, you pissed me off, I chased you down and run you over, so the headline should say automobile violence?
I think based on what we see now, they blame the driver, not the tool, which in that case happens to be the vehicle that he's using.
Correct, so they blame the driver.
Exactly.
But when violence is committed with a firearm, they blame the gun, that we need more gun control because of gun violence. It's not gun violence, it's people violence. We need to address the violence in our inner cities, the suicide rate in our country, especially with all of these lockdowns and everything. We have a perfect storm now. Second round of lockdowns coming. Winter is here. Daylight savings time, it gets dark early. And the holidays. These are the top times people get depressed, on top of another lockdown where people might lose their livelihoods and their incomes. And our politicians, they don't care. And when there's tragedies with firearms, they'll pass laws for more gun control. And every law they pass, they always leave out one sentence in all of their laws. And that sentence is during the act or commission of a crime. So just mere possession of owning something that they banned is a class 3 felony that will land you in state's prison for 3 to 5 years. Not in possession of this gun that they banned while robbing a gas station or shooting somebody, just mere possession. The whole object of the gun control scheme in the anti-gun states and the Bloomberg people up there is to scare the average American, the first generation immigrants, to scare them to not want to get a gun, because there's so many traps and loopholes in gun ownership, what you can and what you cannot do. Could you imagine if we restricted our First Amendment rights the same way?
Oh, people would riot instantly. That would cause an immediate uproar. People, that's another example that I always use. Thank you for giving me that to piggyback off of. People always yell everywhere, I have my freedom of speech. I could say whatever I want. What's the following amendment after your First Amendment, which protects?
Second Amendment. So here's an analogy I use all the time. When you were a child, and if your mother said, make a Christmas list of 5 things you want, what would the number 1 thing be? Your most important thing, right?
For me?
Like bicycle or whatever, right? And then number 2 would be your second most important thing.
Yes.
When the framers of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights wrote the Bill of Rights, I believe they are in order of importance. They're all equally important, but what was on their mind at the time? They escaped religious persecution. The king had stopped them from having free speech, so that was number 1. The second one, they just got done fighting a war to escape the chains of England. Mm-hmm. So we're going to put guns second.
Exactly.
Okay? People take that is a civil right. People do not realize that the right to keep and bear arms is a civil right. If you are a law-abiding citizen, we all have the right to own firearms and protect ourselves and our families. If you're a violent offender, if you're drunk and disorderly, if you're a felon, a repeat felon, because there's a line there. There's a Supreme Court case coming up because there was a gentleman who had a felony for selling shoes online, and he scammed people.
What?
And he got a felony, and now he's under federal law. He's not allowed to ever own guns again. If it's not a violent felony, I believe if you serve your time, you should be able to exercise your Second Amendment right again.
Exactly, because your life could be in jeopardy the moment you are freed from the prison industrial complex. And if you're not able to defend yourself there, wow, what a great way to live. You were stripped, and as you were being released back into a reduced state of freedom, a threat came at you, and since you were not properly prepared to respond to that threat, boom, you're gone.
Correct. So these are things that the average person, and I commend you. See, you give me hope for the future. You're in your early 30s. I'm 60. My
Still a young
activism,
man, by the way.
yes, my activism started right around your age.
Wow, and I actually
So,
wanted to ask you about
1992, so 28 years ago. So we were close.
that. Now, all right, you say 1992, but I believe it started at its core before then. Because I think you opened your range in 1992, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, but my real stepping out into the world and stirring the pot was 1992. But before that, what had happened is I'm first, second generation immigrant. I grew up in Newark in the inner city in public housing.
Oh,
Never
wow.
never owned a gun.
Uh-huh.
Didn't know what the gun laws were. Only criminals and cops had guns.
And just to put a stamp on this, by the way, because people were curious, so I want them to hear it from the horse's mouth. Have you ever served military or been a member of law enforcement?
No, I've never been in the military or law enforcement.
Thank you so much, because people truly have this whole concept in their head that those are the only two bodies that are able to exercise their Second Amendment right. As a regular
That's how.
civilian, you shouldn't be looking at it. You shouldn't be thinking about it. You shouldn't even be pondering the idea of it.
Correct. So in my early 20s, a friend of mine became a police officer, and he took me to a gun range to shoot. I'd never shot a gun before.
Oh, wow.
And I liked it, and I was pretty good at it. So I went to the police department to get a gun permit, and I could not believe the process that I had to go through. The background check, the fingerprints, the mental health check, and they're limiting how many permits you can get. And at that time, I was like, wow, this is like a real violation of our rights. And I was not political, and I was not into the fray with making waves or anything. So it kind of simmered for a while. But then in 1992, I really stepped out into the public square and started to be vocal and started to educate people and spread the love. And, you know, we get attacked all the time. And I've been personally attacked because if you're a white male and a gun owner and a gun advocate, you're automatically racist, sexist, misogynist, and every other
potential mass shooter.
Yeah, well, that and a potential mass shooter. So we get attacked for that all the time. But I grew up in Newark and then in Belleville, and my original business was in Belleville. And Mandy, you've been to my range and you've seen the diversity. You've been there for diversity shoots.
Yes,
and,
yes. And shout out Tony Simon, by the way, Sean, all the great guys who help host the firearms Second Amendment diversity shoot. Truly amazing.
Sean Fisher, Black Bag Resources.
Uh-huh.
And Tony is the diversityshoot.com. I'll plug that for you guys. And, you know, we go out of our way to make everybody feel comfortable. It's a big tent. And one of my guys, Ronald Harmon, who follows me a lot, is in his 60s, African American, and he's gay, and he has a husband or a wife, you know, they're partners. And he told me that when he got into guns a few years ago, he got tons of crap from the gay community for being a gun owner, but he didn't get any crap from the gun community for being gay.
You heard it from the horse's
Okay.
mouth, people. So we could fully put the stamp on that. The Second Amendment, firearms community, self-defense community, period, because it goes beyond the two. It's about the whole concept of being able to protect your life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, does not discriminate against the homosexual community, the LGBTQ community,
Any religion.
We
don't care. Now, to say that racism doesn't exist in parts of the gun community, of course there's racists in every facet or every community, but my experience, the tent that my world is under, I don't see that, and we don't perpetuate that. You know, we embrace everybody because I feel as a Second Amendment advocate, the more the merrier.
Yes.
I want everybody in there because the gun community is tight because we have a common enemy. The government has their boot on our neck 24/7 trying to take our rights away from us. So if the gay community comes in, and the Muslim community, and the Catholics, and the Jews, and the Hindus, and this one, if they all come in together, there's more people in the fight. Mm-hmm. That's how I look at it.
Yes.
So the more people we have, I want to see more people getting into it. And now, with COVID and defund the police and all the protests, last year, 2019, there was 2.9 million new gun owners in the United States.
Wow, look at
This
that. That's
year-
truly amazing. That
This
is a
year,
major increase.
2020, the first 2 months is 7 million new gun owners.
Oh
The
my
first 10
goodness.
months, 10 months. We have 2 more months to go. We might hit 9 million new gun owners, which I've seen. That's all over all 50 states, by the way, including New York. Everybody's seen an uptick. The problem is getting a percentage of those people to be activists like us. Maybe not out in the open activists. Like, I can be an out in the open activist. I own a gun range. My political stance is one way. I'm a libertarian. He knows that. At heart, I'm a constitutionalist and a libertarian.
Yes.
I don't always agree with everything with the Libertarian Party, but nor do I agree with everything in the Republican or Democrat Party. I'm more of an independent, free spirit. But we need more people to wake up and realize this is our right. So every day, if people come into my range, I bought a gun. I can't believe what I had to go through. I thought you could just walk into a store and buy a gun.
Exactly.
I had to get a background check, mental health check, fingerprints, references. They sent a letter to my job. Then they made me wait 6 months, and then they told me I could only buy one handgun a month. When did this happen? And I'm like, 1968. Welcome to our world. Because the media perpetuates. Obama, too, once in a speech said, it's easier to buy a gun online than it is a book.
Wow.
And people actually believe that. You can buy a firearm online in New York or New Jersey, but it has to be shipped to a federal firearms dealer that puts it in their book, and then you have to show up with your ID, your firearms ID card, your purchase permit. You have to fill out the paperwork, go through a waiting period and another background check before you can pick that gun up.
Oh,
So
wow.
no, it's not easier to buy a gun than it is to buy a book online.
And just to add to that, can you explain this gun show loophole and Saturday night specials?
Two different things. Gun show loophole is a media made-up fallacy. Gun show loophole would be a federal offense, would be Manny and I going to Virginia to a gun show and buying a gun from a dealer with no paperwork. The dealer's a felon and we're both felons. It's not a loophole, it would be a felony. There's no real gun show loophole that we can legally buy a gun. Okay, it would be an illegal purchase. Saturday night special was a term that was used in the 50s and 60s for cheap throwaway handguns. That Raven Arms, Jennings, Brico, not High Point, Tony Simon, if you're watching this, but those guns were very cheap, $40, $50 guns. Sometimes they were little break open revolvers and stuff. That was considered a Saturday night special, that you would take it out to commit crimes with or whatever and then toss it. You can't have a Saturday night special today because every gun is registered. Every gun has a serial number on it. Every gun you can tell ballistically, if you retrieve a bullet and then you find the gun, you can tell what gun it was fired out of. So these are just media headlines that they push all the time, the same as gun violence, Saturday night special, gun show loophole. It's all false narratives. Everybody out there listening, whatever state you're in, New York or New Jersey, anywhere else, fill out the paperwork. Get your firearms ID card done, because these tyrannical leaders keep raising the prices on them as well. Now, why do they raise the prices, and why do they make it harder for inner city people to get permits and make them wait longer and put up more obstacles? I could use the term racism, but I'm not. The term is classism. You're knocking out an entire class of people. If you live in an upscale town in New York or New Jersey and you fill out for your permits, you will get them in less than 30 days.
Yeah.
If you live in an inner city like Passaic, Patterson, Jersey City, or Harlem, you have to go to One Police Plaza for that. It takes up to a year to get your permit, 5 or 6 visits to the police department.
Wow.
Okay? And a lot of towns add unnecessary paperwork. They want a letter. I saw the city of Newark, they've since dropped it, wanted an affidavit, a letter from your landlord if you rented, that it was okay for you to have guns in the house.
Okay.
When you rent that apartment, that's not your landlord's decision if you can have guns in your house, in your apartment. But here's why I call it classism. If you make $30,000, $40,000 a year, and you have to visit the police department 6, 7, 8 times. How many times are you going to take off from work before your boss says you're going to get fired, so you give up?
Yes.
If you put up obstacles like landlord letters and other things like that, how long is it going to go before you give up? If they really discriminate against you, are you going to be able to hire a lawyer for $10,000 to fight it? No. So mission accomplished. Our anti-gun politicians and the inner city hierarchy can outwardly discriminate and get away with it. And I don't want to call it racism because it's not just minorities they're discriminated against, because there are other non-minorities that live in those towns too.
Course.
So to me, it's classism. Yeah. We, the first tier, can have our guns and our protection, and you, the third tier, are on your own.
Yes. So, you stated earlier, back in 1968, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously you're the expert. Was that the passing of the NFA? Or
I'm not sure the exact year of the NFA. I use 68 because the riots occurred in 1967. All the high-profile assassinations, Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and then the final one was Robert Kennedy. After all those high-profile assassinations, that's when all the gun control laws started to fall one after another.
I could look it up right now, but yeah, that's...
So it's about 1968. That's what I tell everybody. And I used this analogy the other day. Our rights, all of our rights are civil rights. And a lot of people don't know the NRA is the oldest civil rights organization in the world. It predates the NAACP by some 30 years. 1871, the National Rifle Association was started because the Second Amendment is a civil right. But what our politicians do on both sides is just imagine something everybody can relate to. A block of cheese, a 5-pound block of cheese, and they take a razor knife and they slice a thin slice of our rights off, and they push it this way, and then another thin slice and push it that way. And finally you get to a point where they have about 3 pounds of the cheese over here, and we have about 2 pounds left. Right now we have about a half pound left, would be my analogy. Because they keep stripping our rights away one little bit at a time. Like the Patriot Act after September 11th, they can spy on us.
Yes, they can. Violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Correct.
Now, I did look it up here.
Yes.
NFA was enacted back in 1934, people.
Yeah, that's the National Firearms Act. That was machine guns and other stuff. The NFA was actually because after the St. Valentine's Day massacre that happened in Chicago with Thompson submachine guns and fully automatic guns. That's
was that around the time of Al Capone?
Yeah, that was Al Capone ordered that hit in Chicago. I think it was 1929.
Okay.
I wasn't born yet. For any of you listening, 1961.
Oh, you are a young man in a lot of our books, and this is something else I wanted to touch on because earlier you said that. And by the way, guys, feel free. I'm paying attention. Ask questions. I see some people commenting.
I'm kidding.
No, it's all good. But you inspire me. You said I bring hope to you, but you inspire me so much because when you started all of this, technology was not as advanced as it is now, because I'm an 80s baby. So I saw the transition happen quickly, but I was born into, those home phones that you still had to spin around. If it was like the number 7, you started with like 7, you spun it 8s, 1, etc. I saw the big boom boxes, the tape cassette players and all that. I think they called them Walkmans before with CD players. Yep. I saw the beginning stages of the computer fully functioning, but a lot of people still had typewriters. During that time period, it was a lot easier, and thank God that none of this occurred. I don't wish this upon anybody. But at that time, it was a lot easier to get picked off for trying to be an advocate against a tyrannical government. And Second Amendment is as big an advocacy tier as comes, because that is, hey, we want to defend ourselves from you guys, period. You're not going to legislate us into any type of oppressive system, or we could say slavery. So for you to do that during that time period, it's just like, wow. anybody who was with you along the way as well, because I see the older guys in the Second Amendment community. Tony Simon at the 2A rally actually introduced me to the guy Dick Heller. He introduced me to him, and I was like, wow, just at your age to still be doing this. And he told me that he's been into Second Amendment and pro-Constitution for decades. This is like, God bless that you guys are still alive and you pave the highway for us to continue riding out on in defense of our constitutional rights. Because back then, it was a lot easier to pick somebody off. You didn't have the technology right now that people could see you at a moment's notice. Hey, I'm being followed by a mysterious van. Hey, there's police knocking on my door, like that situation that occurred upstate with that military vet.
Kid upstairs in the attic. Yeah.
Yes. Utilizing the technology that we have available now, he got his message out so quick. And when those ATF and police officers came surrounding the perimeter of his home, there was patriots behind those lines ready to make a move if they chose to enact, well, not enact, take actions in the way of infringements and tyranny. Realistically, that's what it is. It's tyranny.
Yes. When I started Gunfire, there was no internet, and to contact me, you had to page me.
Wow.
With a pager.
I remember the beepers too.
Yeah.
Certain communicational codes and all that.
We had that, and yes, it was different. But we had reading material. We had Shotgun News that came out once a week, and then we had obviously other Second Amendment periodicals. Of course, we've had the NRA, which a magazine comes out every month that would keep us abreast. But it was very hard to be like a modern day Paul Revere, like you people can communicate stuff. we didn't have that. We were one
such
step.
an honor to be called that, by the way. Pardon me to interrupt you.
Yeah, we were one step above riding with a horse to warn people. We had to call each other up from a dial, a rotary phone.
Yes, that's what it's called, the rotary phone. Yes.
And and so it was a little different, but
was there three-way calling back then?
No, there was no three-way calling. You could not have three people on a line. So not with a rotary phone.
It would have to be phone call after phone call after phone
Correct.
call, and everybody remembering, hey, we agreed to meet at this location at this time. Once you leave your household, there is absolutely no communication with anybody else. Get to the destination as soon as possible, because again, it was
Correct.
easier. It was easier to get intercepted back then. And thankfully, again, I'm not religious, but I believe in a higher power, which we call God, and the power of prayer has gotten me so far in life, Colandro. Thank God that nothing happened to you guys, because we wouldn't be here right now.
Our news was spread then back in the gun stores. Notices would be put up. Somebody would Xerox copies and put them in flyers. There's going to be a rally in Trenton. There's going to be a rally at Washington, D.C. this time, this date, and some of us guys, girls, would get in a car and drive down and do our thing. And I've hosted and I've spoken at a bunch of rallies with Tony and many other 2A patriots. And
Lindsay as well. Lindsay, God bless Lindsay, by the way. Realistically speaking, not in a disrespectful manner or anything, but he is more on the elder side of the Second Amendment. So seeing guys like you and him,
correct,
from back then to now, and still here and still consistent, amazing.
It's tiring sometimes. There's times I want to give up, because not only do you get beat up by the anti-gun people, you get beat up by a lot of the pro-gun people.
Yeah,
like you're not. You see me. You're not doing enough. I pay my $40 a year dues from the NRA. What is the NRA doing for us? All the lawsuits that we're involved in, and the lobbying, and the behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on. And there's many times we meet with legislators and we strike a deal, but then we can't advertise it because the legislator would get in trouble because they're supposed to be anti-gun.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to sit on it, and we can't brag about that win. But it happens, and all of you that are following Manny here, you need his energy, you need his focus. And we were on the Larry Sharp show together, and I look up to you. You give me hope for the future, because not many 30 or so year olds have really found their way and know what they want to do, and I commend you for that. But and keep doing it. You come to all the diversity shoots, you're always bringing people, you have a ton of energy. Everybody needs to do that. The problem with our country today is people are one paycheck away from being evicted, and all they want to do is come home at night and sit in front of the TV and watch Dancing with the Stars or whatever other shit is on. And as long as their little world is okay, and then they'll complain, oh, I wish I had more money. Oh, I see this guy in a Bentley. I wish I had that. Well, you got to take it. Because I was outside, I smoked cigars. I was outside my range one night smoking a cigar. And a young African American kid came over to me. He goes, I watch all of your stuff. He's maybe 24 years old. He goes, and I think you're great at what you did. He goes, you know, even though you and I grew up in two different worlds, I really respect you. I said, really? I said, where do you live? He said, I live in Bedford-Stuy. I said, I grew up in Newark.
Which is very similar.
In city housing with a gambleaholic father who drove a truck, and my mother walked to work and sewed flags in a factory. We didn't have a cell phone. We didn't have a car. My brother and I shared a room 7 feet by 8 feet in a tenement type apartment, and with no air conditioning in the summer. And I tell people, don't tell me we come from different worlds. I didn't really start being successful with the range and stuff until I was in like my 40s or 50s. I got a late start. It wasn't like I grew up and I had to choose between Harvard and Yale that my parents were going to pay for, and then at 24 years old I hit the ground running making $500,000 a year or something. It doesn't work that way. The first time I got married, my parents bought me a TV for a wedding gift. Nobody paid for the wedding. Me and my girlfriend paid for the wedding, you know. So, but we have perceptions of people.
Yes.
Oh, well, he's a white guy, 60 years old. He owns a gun range, so he must have been born with money. I borrowed everything to open that range. You know what I mean? And so all of you, and the moral of the story is not to brag about my position, but the story is it's here. This is still one of the few countries, regardless of our crap politicians on both sides of the aisle, it's still a country where if you put your mind to something, you can achieve almost all of it, if not all of it. Timing and luck has a lot to do with it as well.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You know, you might get into real estate at just the right time, or you might get into real estate at just the wrong time.
The right time was 2008.
Yeah, it's too late now, right now, but it's cyclical. It goes back and forth.
They are prognosticating another housing crash. Don't hold me to that.
I believe it's coming. Yeah. I believe all of this fake money that the federal government's been printing, and everybody that's been out of work, and so many people are not going to go back to work. People are moving in with family and friends because they can't afford it. I think once this urban flee of everybody moving from New York and New Jersey and stuff to escape COVID, I think we're going to see a dip in 2021 in the housing market.
And I was actually on the phone with Larry not too long ago, and that's the exact same way he explained it to me, with the only exception, different breathing patterns. But besides that, word for word, tear for tear. And it's just amazing because when you guys put it in that detailed explanation, you create an image in somebody's head that they could see. Oh, okay, they could have a graph in their head, or just have a whole visual of urban United States being practically abandoned, which does lead to another housing market crash. And these things, it's horrible that we've gotten here, such this point in time, a time of a lot of uncertainty, a time of a lot of fear, a time of a lot of discouragement, and a lot of panic as well. You do hear a lot of this coming from a lot of civilians. And it's disturbing because we watched the movies growing up. You watched Terminator, you watched The Matrix, you watched all these borderline apocalyptic or post-line apocalyptic videos that were blockbusters, and all I ever thought about was, ever since I was a Smurf, was God forbid that ever happens in this lifetime or to anybody, because I'm very considerate of others, and I believe Second Amendment advocates, we're very considerate of others because we're trying to preserve people's rights to protect themselves from anything.
All people's rights.
Exactly. And when you see these things and you have these possible images already projected to you, it's just like, what could lead us in that direction, because that's what we want to stay away from, and we have to be aware of anybody who takes a position of power that will steer us in that direction. The whole you know destruction of the infrastructure of the United States, the housing crash. They contain us within our homes. A lot of things are going back to closing at 10 p.m. And it's just like, how much more restraints, how much more control are we gonna allow to occur before we take a stance? And again, we've seen it in the movies, and the movies show us the examples at brutal levels. We don't want to get there.
I don't know how people are tolerating this, because not one government worker, not one government employee at state or federal level since all of these lockdowns started in March have felt our pain. And they're paid by us, the taxpayers, with our taxes, our revenue, yet they're limiting our ability to create revenue by locking us down and closing our businesses and still demanding their money so that they get paid. See, I believe in a society like this, we should be quarantining the high-risk people. We should not be quarantining everybody, including the healthy people. Does this virus have risk? Yes, there are risks to it. It's far worse than the seasonal flu.
Yeah.
All right, many people die from it. I know people in their 40s who've died from it.
God bless their lives.
But it gets to a point where risk and reward, Trump, who I'm not a huge fan of, said that the cure can't be worse than the disease. And we're at a point now where, like, Murphy just keeps he said in his press conference today, the governor of New Jersey, New York, they're all the same. Connecticut, they all talk to each other. He's like,
think they're
he's
related.
like, the way you have been acting in New Jersey, you deserve another lockdown. Like we're children. He just told us we can't have more than 10 people at our house for the holidays or something. You can't have more people than 10. I believe I'm a responsible adult. I can use my discretion as a libertarian. I don't need the government to tell me how many people come to my house. That's not your job.
Thank you. They're restraining us to the point that we can't even enjoy ourselves within our own households. The households that we pay our hard-earned dollars for to live in, domicile in, enjoy ourselves in, relax in, rest our heads at night so we could be productive citizens come the next day. And now, how long till they legislate what you can do in the shower? How do you scrub yourself? The type of shampoo you could use? All these things. And how you said earlier, everybody's too busy being distracted. And I'll give credit. A lot more people are becoming aware, but it should be way more than the numbers we're seeing right now. And we don't want us to get to the tipping point that we're walking the plank right there at the last inch of that plank. Like, oh my God, we got to do something.
But that's where it's going, because I don't see enough people rising up and getting pissed off about stuff like this. I just don't see it. When I post stuff like that, I get attacked. Oh, this disease is real. I understand it's real, but we have to be able to put safety parameters in. We have to go on living. We are not the first tier. We're the third tier. We have to go to work where we're overtaxed and underrepresented.
Yes.
All right? That's what it comes down to.
Thank you.
All right, overtaxed with little or no representation. They do not care about us. People do not realize that. They say everybody hates politicians, but everybody loves their politician.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, because
you have...
they're a politician. I'll get the jobs for you. I'll get this and get that. They only give a shit about us every 2 or every 4 years. Once they're back in, they go back to their dinner parties and their country clubs.
Thank you. And this is what I talk about, because I get a lot of slack for supporting guys like you who I hope someday you choose to run for office.
No, I have morals and convictions. I will never run for office.
But I get mobbed when I support guys like you, guys like Larry, who hopefully runs again in 2022. It's looking like it, but don't hold me to it. Because they're like, oh, how can you trust them? And you know what I respond to them? Why continue trusting those that are already in those positions and have consistently failed you? Why not give somebody new a try? OG, you know what the definition of insanity is, correct?
Doing the same thing over and over and over again with the same results.
Exactly. While expecting different results.
So you know, I tell people, I have talks with people all the time. I get a ton of people from the New York metropolitan area in my range. and we'll start talking, and I'm like, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, because in my 60 years, I've seen Democrats and Republicans have power at the state, county, federal level, and the potholes get bigger, and the taxes get higher, and the services get worse, and we the people get less and less. So I don't believe any of this. I'm a Democrat, he's a Republican, he's a they're all the same party.
Mm-hmm.
It's all staged. Do not commit yourself to Democrat or Republican. It's all bullshit.
And just to put it on record, by the way, even libertarian, if it's a horrible libertarian
I wouldn't
candidate,
support.
exactly, you can have a Democrat that's pro Second Amendment.
There are plenty of blue dog Democrats in the Midwest. I'm a single issue voter, unfortunately. I only vote because of the Second Amendment, because that's my passion.
Exactly. You can have a Republican who's pro decriminalization of the war on drugs. It's all about the candidate and just holding them to keeping their word, right or wrong. If I tell you, hey, Colandro, I'm going to grant you an assembly hall to host a meeting, and the day comes that you have already scheduled, you've notified the people that you know within your network, and they've notified their networks. The day of the meeting comes, and I retract my word. Hey, I said I had you, but sorry.
I'd be pissed off.
Would you ever give me another opportunity?
No.
So that's the confusion. That's what I can't put together. And we're trying, guys like you and I, like Larry Sharp, like Mars Shure, like Tony Simon, like Keith Panelon, like Sean Fisher, like so many people out there, you know, to not name the whole bunch, but all of you guys out there, which we cherish you so much, by the way, for us to be constantly reminding people, hold your politicians accountable the same way you would hold your friends accountable, the same way you would hold dates accountable. Hold them accountable. What's so difficult about accountability? That's all. And if somebody lets you down, you make one of two choices. One, you cut them off cold turkey, or two, you give them a very pressured second chance.
All of you listening, a great civics lesson, because people don't do this enough. Your town government, go to a council meeting one night when COVID is
And
finally
pardon me
over.
real quick, while you explain that portion, the guys are back, so
Go ahead.
the more the merrier.
Go to a council meeting and watch how it works. Go to your state legislators and watch how a session works. If you get a chance to go to Washington, D.C., you can see the same thing. You know, when you go and testify in front of them, when you're passionate about something, like I go down to Trenton, and I've been down to Washington, D.C. to testify against anti-gun bills, they sit higher than you, the politicians. That just further reinforces that they're the first tier and you're the third tier. But it also works psychologically because you have to look up to them. You're given a very limited amount of time to speak. You could literally sit in the room for hours. You have nothing to drink, nothing to eat. They take breaks. They go to the bathroom. They get something to drink. And they make you wait hours and hours so that you're worn down mentally and physically when they talk to you. And it's really become, they really should be wearing robes and wigs and crowns and scepters and everything when they're talking to us, because we are the little people, the unwashed masses that they really don't give a shit about. And everybody needs to witness that and be a part of it. I mean, when I go down and testify, I have a prepared speech. I only have 2 minutes. They turn your microphone off. And while I'm talking, they're all talking amongst themselves, and they're joking, and they're ordering lunch and everything. It's just the ultimate sign of disrespect.
Yes.
And I've called them rich, repulsive socialists. I pay your salary. They could give a shit. And again, it's all a stage. If he's a Democrat, I'm a Republican, we meet, and I say, Manny, I'm up for re-election. I need to beat you up on this issue really bad. All right? Next time you got me. I'll see you at the country club Sunday.
It's political WWF.
Yeah, so exactly, perfect analogy. So I go out there and go, this guy, son of a bitch, and then Sunday we're at the country club golfing with our kids. Then 6-8 months later, Manny approaches me and goes, oh, Tone, I need a solid. I need to, beat you up on this. No problem, man. I got you. I can take the heat. And we get reelected and reelected and reelected. And how do politicians at the federal and state level that make like 150 to 180,000 a year after 20 years, they're worth $30 million. I've done this math, and I can't figure out how you can turn that money into that much money.
Would you agree it is, what's the word I'm looking for here? Well, I can't be nice about it. It's a swamp.
It is the swamp, and the swamp protects its.
Thank you.
And the swamp protects itself, including the career bureaucrats that work in government. Okay? The career bureaucrats that work in government, those are the paid people that don't get elected, like your town manager, your administrator, the tax assessor. They're all in it. Have any of you gone to a post office or town hall to get a gun permit or a real estate permit or anything else? They treat us like shit.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They're looking at us funny. They're not happy to see us. There's no enthusiasm.
It's like, what do you want? I need to pay my taxes on my house. Okay, you could have mailed it in, you know. Yeah, I know, but I want it dropped off and I want it stamped paid because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
And that's how they treat us. The post office is the same way. I went to our local post office to ship a gun. You can ship a gun through the U.S. Postal Service.
Oh, wow, I did not know
that.
that.
You can. Well, I can as an FFL. I bring the gun in, the guy behind the counter goes, we don't ship guns. Post office doesn't ship guns. You have to use UPS or Federal Express. I said, no, you ship guns. He goes, no, I'm not shipping any guns. He made it personal. And I went on my phone, USPS, gun shipping policy. I showed it to him. I said, can I see your boss? He goes, my boss is not here right now. He shipped the gun.
And real quick, because I know people will get curious, what exactly is FFL?
A Federal Firearms License. So that's run by the ATF, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Division. Everybody who sells guns in the United States has to be an FFL. So if Manny was an FFL in Chicago and I'm an FFL in New Jersey, he could ship a gun to me. Manny's cousin could buy a gun in Chicago and have it shipped to me in New Jersey as long as it's New Jersey compliant. So sorry, I'm usually talking to gun people. So an FFL is a Federal Firearms License. Yeah. And then in New Jersey, we also have a state firearms license. And in New York, we have a New York City firearms license that runs concurrent with it. In many other states, all you need is the federal license. But our states like more permits because they like to take our rights away and sell them back to us as a license or a permit.
Yes,
for everything, from hunting to fishing to almost breathing pretty soon. Go ahead.
Yes.
And that's one stance that the libertarians are very big on. Stop taking our inalienable and God-given rights, if you believe in God, and selling them back to me with requirements and shit that has to be filled out. Okay?
Thank you so much for that. We do have some great guys coming in shortly, by the way, and they bring beers.
I don't drink.
Would you agree, because you brought up Trump earlier, we were we had an expectancy of Trump, and it wasn't a pressured one, more of a hopeful one. I didn't vote for him. And
I did.
And that's fine. I didn't vote for him the first time. I voted Gary Johnson because I felt Gary Johnson was abiding a lot more by the Constitution, and he was more of the outsider in comparison to Trump. But I did start advocating for Trump as his term, progressed forward. Now, would you agree that we've seen throughout his first term, he really let us down on Second Amendment?
He really can't do anything. He's just one figurehead. It's the legislator, it's the Assembly and the Senate that have to put a bill on his desk for him to sign.
Yeah.
I think that we need Trumpism, but we don't need Trump. He's too obnoxious and abrasive to everybody.
Because basically what I say with that, because obviously it has to be first coming through the Assembly, through Congress, and then towards the Senate. But as president, let's say, for example, if you were president, same way if I was president, we would let Congress know, hey, my congressmen and women, bring me some Pro 2A constitutional bills.
But-
Bring me all constitutional bills. Send them my way, and I'll gladly sign off on them so we can have it passed.
So the first 2 years Trump was elected, the Assembly was Republican and the Senate was Republican.
And that's
He
when
could
they
have passed
passed.
anything. But Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, hated Trump, so he didn't send anything good to the Senate to have it sent to Trump.
And to put the pardon me
ahead.
of interrupting,
No, go
to
ahead.
put the stamp on it, that was during the time period that the House had passed national concealed carry reciprocity, correct?
Correct.
Thank
Correct.
you.
So
Thank
then Paul Ryan was so obnoxious, after 2 years, the Republicans lost the House. So now the Democrats ran the House.
Oh yeah, we can't expect nothing
Correct.
from
So the
Pelosi.
only thing that Trump did that I like that he did in 4 years is 220 federal judges that were all recommended to him by the Federalist Society, which is a think tank that only endorses originalist judicial appointees. And what I mean by originalist, which they're textualists, they look at the original Constitution and the Bill of Rights
as written.
and they adhere to it. They're not legislators, they're not lawmakers, they're just interpreting it the way it was written. It's not a living document, it's sealed in stone. And he appointed 220 judges, 3 Supreme Court judges. And the Supreme Court judges are important, but remember, the Supreme Court gets about 8,000 cases a year and they only take 80.
Wow.
All right.
Is that within capacity? Like, is that a numeric standard?
No, within capacity. They look at about 8,000 cases a year, they're clerks and stuff, and the judges take about 80 a year.
Oh, okay, but that's based on choice, not set in stone.
Correct,
You can only
correct.
take 80. Okay,
Correct.
it's
They
based
could
on
take
choice.
100 if they could handle the caseload.
1,000 if they can handle the
Correct,
case?
but they
Okay.
won't. The lower courts are more important to us. The appellate courts, the district courts, these are the courts that are important to us because you want originalists at that level, because so many cases go to that level, they could be shot down and sent back down and ratified instead of trying to get them all the way up to the Supreme Court. For example, we had the Rogers concealed carry case, NRA backed. Mark Cheeseman had a case as well. We took it to New Jersey Supreme Court. We lost. We appealed it. We lost again. We took it to the appellate court. We lost. We appealed it. We won again. We lost again.
Oh, okay.
We took it to the Third Circuit. We lost with a 3-judge review. We asked for a full en banc. We lost. We petitioned the Supreme Court. We were one of the cases that was taken by the Supreme Court.
Well, it's taken by the Supreme Court, yes.
And the Supreme Court denied its cert. They didn't hear it because Thomas knew we didn't have enough votes, because Roberts was too wishy-washy and Ruth Bader Ginsburg was still there. So we spent 3 years and $6 million.
These are Supreme Court judges, by the way, for those
Yes.
wondering. Justice Roberts and recently passed, God bless her soul, RBG, the infamous RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And yeah.
So we need lower court judges that are going to stop this legislating from the judicial bench. And this is really important. So the only thing, the real reason why I wanted Trump reelected for 4 more years,
It's because of the
and the
judges.
Senate,
yeah.
I would like to have gotten another 200 judges to change the courts for a long time, because we had a lot more court appointees under liberals for many, many years. And not liberals in a sense, because I'm a liberal in many senses. I hate this whole thing. I'm not a socialist.
Yeah, a
But,
liberal in the sense that you respect and want to encourage each individual to be their own individual self.
What you do in the privacy of your own home is your business.
Exactly.
To me, that's a classic liberal stance.
Yes.
If you want to be gay, you want to be straight, you want to be bisexual, as long as it doesn't affect me. Same thing with religion. I don't care what religion you are, but don't try to sell me and push your religion on me. That's just how I feel. So I'm liberal. I would consider myself a liberal in that sense. So I think Trump's big problems were he was too abrasive. He always had to punch down back at people, and I also think that he could have gotten a lot more done if the radical left in the country didn't attack him so much. But
Yeah, because my whole thing with Trump is, listen, just how you stated with the judges, I always gave him credit for that. When Instagram restores my account right now, they got me on a 20-day review, which
I just got off a 7-day
wow.
review.
I'm appealing daily. I'm not stopping the appeal. And for anybody who wants to help, if you have an Instagram, please just post a caption at cashfirst456 at Instagram. Restore cashfirst456's account. His account was wrongfully deactivated. I was not making any death threats. I was not posting anything pornographic. I was not being prejudiced or racist to anybody. I'm a minority, even though racism is a two-way street. Us minorities, we gotta get it together. And this is a Puerto Rican talking. We gotta get it together because yes, we can be racist as well. And I refuse to be racist. I refuse to hate white people. Plenty of wonderful white people of all different colors, shapes, sizes, ethnic backgrounds, religious beliefs. Some, I do have certain precautions, but for the most part, across the board, I've met good people and shitty people all over the place. And I can say, quantity-wise, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 phone calls when I was around certain areas that I can understand people being suspicious of me, which is fine, but they shouldn't have called the cops. But quantity-wise, white people have been wonderful to me. White people have received me in the Second Amendment community and taught me a lot legislatively, improving my aim, firearms safety, and hey, moving into the future when I, get my infringed Second Amendment granted to me via permits and FID, firearms identification card, more than likely it's gonna be a white person who is going to help me select the right firearms, the best build. If I want to assemble one from the ground up, because I know you guys at Gun for Hire have a build similar to Build-A-Bear, build your own AR. I really want to do that. By the way, I even have the whole image in my head. I'm going to have Taz, shout out Taz, by the way. I'm going to have him draw it out. Like, that is easier. But yeah, more than likely, I'm not setting it in stone, but I'm saying more than likely, it'll be a white person helping me the same way it'll be a white person helping you. We have to get the racism out of the way, because it is a divide and conquer tactic. That's all it is. You peel our skin, we're nothing but organs and skeletons, walking around, making decisions, having thoughts, sleeping, eating, and using the restroom, unless you have some type of birth defect or later on in life, life-changing event that occurred. But we're all pretty much the same underneath this skin, You know what?
You know what I like. Excuse me. You know what I like about this rant? Because I don't know when you had an awakening into the Second Amendment community.
Oh, we're gonna get to that.
But listen, now he's here preaching and getting more people into the fold in the Second Amendment community, and that's what it's really all about. Do you understand? He comes to my range, he asks for help, he asks questions, whatever. I'll do whatever. I bend over backwards to make sure he gets it. And then what happens is, we talk about on my radio show all the time, each one reach one. So now he goes out and reaches 30 more. And I'm not asking him, so many of those ones you reached, how many were Puerto Rican? How many were black? I don't give a shit.
Exactly.
Bring them into the fold. Get as many as we can in and let people learn and let them see what it's like. Now, it's not for everybody. For people, some people are going to go to range shoot one time and go, it's not my thing.
Not everybody
That's
likes
fun.
ice cream. I don't like ice cream.
What?
I don't. But we can still hang out, right?
You like piragua?
To an extent, I like it when the ice is melted.
Okay.
I really don't like anything cold per se. It really, my body does not receive it. But I don't discriminate against anybody who does.
Neither do I. I don't care. But now I don't know if I like them. The ice cream thing could be a deal breaker.
Because this is a thing as well, since you mentioned how you broke it down, that you're not looking for ethnicity. I'll never forget the first time I went to Gun for Hire and I had to sign the waiver. I didn't see the ethnical question there.
No, but we asked you if you're pregnant or breastfeeding.
Yeah. And that's for safety.
Yes.
That's purely for safety, because we don't want to jeopardize nobody, especially within the establishment. That's your range. Anything happens, you have to answer for it. You're the owner. You get me? So it's just a safety precaution, but you never made it ethnical database, a question of, oh, we're getting this many or that many. No, it's just across the board, citizens looking to learn more about their constitutional right, firearm safety, any type of self-defense training, because you guys talk about knives, hand-to-hand combat, and even lately I've been seeing more medical awareness. You need medics out on the field, and that could be via military, via protest, via militia that chooses to rise up to preserve its status of a free state.
Everyone out there, you are your own first responder.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that, because that's the slack I tend to get a lot from when it comes to the police, And I was a guy at one point in my life who was more pro cop and all that, but can you blame me throughout the years experiencing stop and frisk, experiencing profiling, experiencing blatant prejudice from them, and them going out of their way. The old saying, if you continue digging, you're gonna find. They're going out of their way, making me take my sneakers off, opening my jacket when it's cold, violating my Fourth Amendment, and pushing me to violate my Fifth Amendment, trying to force me to talk, telling me if I don't talk, I could be in trouble. And these are the guys that we want to label first responders. Average police officer response time in any incident is, Colandro, if you could please let the public know.
11 minutes. Average police response time in the United States is 11 minutes. So you are your own first responder. And now with all the efforts to defund the police, all the bad raps the good cops have been getting for the bad cops, I'm sure most police officers are not in a rush to get to violent confrontation as much as they were maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
They probably figure they'd rather get there after everything's over and just make a report so they don't risk their livelihood being accused of police brutality or whatever the case. Listen, there's bad in everywhere. Is there bad cops? Of course there's bad cops. There's a lot of good cops too. I don't believe every cop wakes up in the morning and says, I think I'm going to go kill some innocent person today.
Yeah, not all of them.
I don't think there's many of them out there that are doing that. Stop and frisk was a definite violation, and it was challenged in the courts, but again, when you have 30, 40 years of liberals, Democrats appointing judges, the judges, like in New Jersey, the Republicans in New Jersey sued the governor because he wanted to borrow $10 billion, and all the judges that sat on the panel, all 9 or 11 of them, were all appointed by Democrats. So of course they told Murphy, now you can borrow anything you want.
Wow.
We lose our checks and balances.
We do.
We don't have checks and balances in this country anymore. It's like this.
Yes, it is.
Okay, the first tier's up here, and we're all down here.
Yes.
Why do they cater to the criminals and the illegals and stuff here? Because they're like guaranteed to support them, because they have them in a legal form of slavery of support.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, by supporting these people, whether it's welfare, Section 8, food stamps. And my mother, we were on food stamps, which today it's not called that. It's called, was it Family First, I think, or something?
I think Family First.
And that they were actually coupons when I was a kid.
I could look it up.
But so they have those people controlled. And what's Candace Owens talks about the plantation. The Democrats like to keep the minorities on the plantation, but I think it's also, but it's both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats, because it's all a facade. But you want to keep them down, give them some free shit so that they don't fight for freedom. And who's left? Us, the disenfranchised bottom tier. And who falls on that? You get up and go to work every day?
Pretty much, yeah.
6, 7 days a week? 5, 6 days a week?
5, 6 days.
You pay taxes?
Of course.
You have bills to pay?
Yes.
Pay taxes on everything you touch? Pay taxes on these microphones and everything, right?
Yep. And it's taxation without representation. That's what I tell people.
Third tier. Join the club. Third tier.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that's what I tell people all the time. They're constantly, you see how you said checks and balances, which is, the function of the system. They're collecting their checks. They're always checking us. but there's no balance in which we get to reciprocate that to them.
Correct.
Why we can't hold them accountable for taking our money? We got potholes in the street. Our rights are constantly infringed. Our privacy is constantly violated, and they're looking for every single excuse to make you a criminal.
Without a doubt. And it's always to keep us afraid and keep us in line. Okay? They have us shackled, basically. And they'd love to get rid of us. They would love to get rid of the third tier. They'd love to have just the first tier and a second tier, bottom tier, because that's how communism works. You have the elites, the bourgeois, and on the bottom, you have the peasants.
Exactly.
The middle class keeps them in the way. In the middle class, we've dropped to the third tier, but we're still middle class, lower middle class, inner city. They keep us down. They keep their boot on our back all the time.
Exactly. And real quick side note, I just want to say, Colandro, on this episode, God bless Larry Sharp. Larry, I love you. You are an idol to me, just like Colandro is. But we're actually doing Larry numbers for the very first episode in viewership. So clap it up to that, because
keep it up. Keep it up. Keep doing what you do. We need you, young man.
Thank you.
We need the energy. We need to spread the word. You need to follow this guy. You need to share it with everybody, because people need to have an awakening. Just ask yourself, if you're 30 years old and if you've been in the working field for the past 5 or 6, 7 years, have you seen any politician make your life better, make your life easier?
Absolutely
Have
not.
you ever seen taxes go down?
No, because even Trump, he as an example of that, he said he passed a tax cut, but it only benefited the big corporations.
Well, aren't you only going to benefit the people that are giving you the most money?
Yeah.
That's how it works. That's what
You know?
I believe, that all of our politicians should wear a NASCAR jacket with their sponsors. You know, Pfizer, General Motors, Google, Amazon, Facebook. There shouldn't be a flag, because they don't represent we, the American people.
Yeah.
I believe that when somebody runs for political office, I believe 90% of people that run, it's with good intentions. They want to change things. And then once they get in, it's about self-preservation. Once you're in, it's like, Manny, listen, you got in. The guy from Pfizer, they donated $10,000 to your campaign. He needs you to look at this. Meanwhile, Mary, that lives on 6th Street, that they're going to build a Rite Aid next door, and she's concerned, you don't have time to see her. She didn't donate shit. She just voted for you because she believed what you said. But you're too busy meeting the guys from Pfizer, and meeting the guys from AT&T, and meeting this donor and this lobbyist and that donor, and you don't have time to meet with her.
That's exactly the word I wanted you to use. That is falling under the title of lobbyism, correct?
Correct. We should not allow lobbyists. It should be individual lobbyists. There should not be corporate or foreign lobbyists in Washington, D.C.
Somebody asks, how's the lasagna coming along? I will be checking on the lasagna.
Smells good.
Within the next 2 minutes. Let me just get a very good question for Colandro to elaborate on while I go and check. And I really want his critique, his judgment, his, what's the word I'm looking for here? His validation on my lasagna. So if you could briefly, while I go check on the lasagna and tell these guys to come in here as well, briefly explain to people what happens when we don't hold the politicians accountable and allow the lobbyists to just run wild. While I return, if you could just, cameras on you, mic is on, OG, let them know.
So what happens when we allow the lobbyists to run wild? We get Google, Amazon, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, running our lives, running our country, running our pharmaceutical prices and everything. Why do you think we pay so much for prescription drugs? Because the lobbyists spend tens of millions of dollars on our politicians, and then they allow the drug companies to charge whatever they want. They have laws where you can't have competition or free market like true capitalism. Everything is either subsidized or taxed in a certain way, or other policies and protections, and that's how you get people. And listen, Jeff Bezos, $180 billion. Good for him. He built the company from scratch. But basically you have monopolies now. You only have one place. Even though you have other search engines, we all know Google's the one, and whether it be social media or something. So when you have these lobbyists running the show and spending tens of millions of dollars representing corporate America, we the people suffer. It's no secret that they all have homes and all have lobbying office in and around the Beltway in Washington, D.C., because they have their pulse on it every day, making sure that we the people get screwed as much as possible.
Thank you so much for that. And I gotta apologize real quick. I should have had the tissues ready before. Is that you gotta understand, we've known each other for years already, and I still get starstruck every time I see you.
Starstruck.
Because with you is like I said you admire the steps I'm taking on the youth side. I admire the legacy that you have up until this very second, us right here. Everything that you've done, constantly fighting. I'll never forget when in New Jersey, Governor Chris Christie, was it, who wanted to pass a magazine capacity reduction bill, if I'm not mistaken, 15 to 10 rounds.
Yes.
And you went down there and you got everybody. I have it on my Instagram. One more time, people. Push for Instagram to restore my account. They wrongfully deactivated me while you have people out here making full-blown death threats. I'm not against pornography, but they say their terms and policies are very content restrictive, so that people shouldn't be posting pornography. But you have people pretty much posting pornography, and then they want to shaft guys like me. And ironically enough, they shafted me when I was talking about Trump's failure with fathers' rights, which we're going to get back to Trump, because I need your elaboration on a few things when it comes to that. And yeah, so you were able to get this whole audience there to stand up and say that they weren't going to comply. I believe that was back in 2014, 2015, if I'm not mistaken.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yes, I had stickers made up, and we told everybody we would not comply.
Yeah, and I saw women there old enough, and not to disrespect them, just calling a spade, old enough to be our you know, my grandmother, your mother, even your grandmother. But they were so up in age and still willing to participate, and even though they're not the direct voice, but taking the action of being there and saying we're not going to comply, and I am willing to rise up against this tyrannical action that you guys are trying to execute upon. Because if you leave me defenseless and your law enforcement officers take 11 minutes on average to show up while you're stripping me of my right to self-defense via any tool that I choose to use, any method, any type of martial arts, you're making me a sitting duck. I'm not going to let that happen.
The problem now is it's an exercise in futility, because they really don't care. We've let it go too far. There needs to be some type of flashpoint to wake our politicians up. You know, having the elections be split like this all the time, and the balance of power shifting by 1 or 2 votes, it allows them to point fingers for 4 to 6 years, then get reelected, then point fingers that way for 4 or 6 years. It's just hitting the tennis ball over the net back and forth. There needs to be something to happen. I've testified, like I said, at state level and federal level. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They really don't care. They go back to their bourgeois lives, like millionaires, which most of them are. And you know, we also saw that video with Nancy Pelosi eating the $12 a pint ice cream with the 2 Sub-Zero refrigerators behind her in her mansion in California. They don't care about us.
Now, you see, right there, that goes to show lack of accountability, lack of awareness is going to lead us to the point in time where now we're going to wear masks everywhere that we go, pretty much.
Face diaper.
You got to be out of businesses, out of any locations that you would have freely enjoyed before. Well, not even full-blown freely, but you know what I mean. That you would have enjoyed all nonchalantly up until a few months ago. I can't go to Dave & Buster's. This is what happens, people. And for all the viewers here, thank you for tuning in. Spread this message far and wide. Share this episode far and wide. We got about 40 minutes left. We're gonna get to some real bullet points. But when we don't pay attention, it's just like leaving the stove on within your household. That's a danger. It could lead to a very bad consequence. Don't let it get there. The same way you pay attention to the stove in your house, to the electrical outlets in your house, to the oil in your car, to the brakes in your vehicle, to your health. Even though a lot of people, well, I'm not going to say a lot, but you have your sides, those who do and those who don't. But when you're not paying attention to certain things, bad shit is going to happen sooner or later. The inevitable is coming, right?
They want us uneducated. They want us watching television. The media is part of the whole political class as
I'm
well.
drinking a Mike's Hard
Yes.
Lemonade, by the way. Shout out Mike's Hard Lemonade. It tastes amazing.
They better pay for sponsoring for that.
I would love an endorsement. You guys are great, and I've never seen you guys be unconstitutional. You guys encourage the right to have a good time. So
Shameless plug. But yes, we
I am not driving either, by the way, tonight. So
good. People need to get involved at the local level, state level, and the federal level. Make their voices heard. Get out there and vote. Stop watching the brain drain television that's on every night, and really teach your kids and the next generations that they have to mobilize. Something has to happen in this country. Our politicians get fatter and fatter. I read a story once where people, when they would go through Europe in medieval times, they knew who the kings were and the religious people were, because they were the only ones that were fat. Okay? Everybody else, the peasants, were all skinny. But all the royalty, all the first tier people were fat. And everybody else was skinny. And that's how it is in this country. Our political class and our elites, all their wallets are fat, and all of our wallets are skinny.
You know what's funny, since you make that example? I've been in several different network marketing companies, and they always make us watch this particular video. I think it's called Basic Networking Comp, something like that, along those lines, around there. And it's narrated by a guy who made success via network marketing, even though everything is pretty much network marketing. But he chose to enroll in one of these network marketing companies and had a big boom out of it. And he used the same example that you used. Back in the day, you wanted to be a fat man just to be labeled a person of success. You were rich. You had a position of power. You were top tier in the hierarchy. And he said, that was the image portrayed. And even though now you're not seeing it as much, like just the influence and the projection of that, which corresponds to what they choose to do while infringing on our rights. They give us bad images, nothing but bad news, frequently, consistently, bad outcomes. They rarely, if ever, talk about that law-abiding citizen, because I don't want to use law enforcement or armed security as an example, because that's always what they always last resort to. So I want to talk about the law-abiding citizens who were able to protect their lives and the lives of others when they were able to exercise their constitutional rights of self-defense, not only for themselves, but for others. Because sometimes, what if you have somebody in a wheelchair missing arms? It's a lot more difficult for them to protect themselves. So if you're able to do something about it and prevent their life being taken from them from an aggressor, somebody who already made a declaration via their actions that they don't give a fuck, you shouldn't be penalized for that, or made a criminal. You should be promoted, broadcasted, entitled, labeled, validatedly stamped a hero, because you prevented a horrible situation from occurring. You saved somebody's life, and who knows, possibly others as well. Because if a criminal gets away with something, they will continue to do it. Right or wrong?
And they know, the criminals know there's no ramifications. With bail reform, we have a catch and release revolving door criminal justice system. And they know that. They play it out to criminals. It's always the law abiding citizens that pay for it. It's always us that, in New Jersey, back in the day, if you were driving with a gun in your car, unloaded on your way to the range, and you made an unnecessary deviation and stopped at your sister's house, and you were pulled over by a cop, you were looking at 3 to 5 years in state prison. With no criminal intent, just for deviating. What kind of law is that? Well, how does that prevent crime? That doesn't prevent crime. That prevents people from exercising their constitutional right. When criminals get arrested using a firearm in a violent crime, the first thing that's dropped is the gun charge in a plea deal. It's always the first thing, because under the Graves Act, you're supposed to do 5 years in jail if you commit a violent crime with a firearm.
Wow.
Okay, so when the prosecutor and defense attorney sit down, they're like, no, let's drop the gun charge. We'll just do simple assault and and robbery, and we'll give him time served 18 months and let him out of prison. Meanwhile, Manny here, who's driving to his sister's house with the gun in the trunk, goes to jail for 3 years. I actually robbed somebody at gunpoint, and I get 18 months in prison, time served.
Thank you for explaining that.
That's how it works.
Now, there was people asking as well. We got the info. Gun Control Act of 1968. Title amends 18 U.S.C. What is that? United States Court?
Yes.
Crimes and Criminal Procedure. October 22nd, 1968. It banned interstate shipments of firearms and ammunition to private individuals and sales of guns to minors, drug addicts, and mental incompetents. This is the first time you have in law that mentally unbalanced people ought not be able to get guns. Also convicted felons. What is that doing, people? That is making somebody who might have a mental disability have an even bigger disability when it comes to preserving their own life. We're in a state now that people are always talking about, oh, we have to promote mental awareness, not mental shame. That's mental shaming within its own hidden
We have
matter.
a mental health stigma in this country.
Yes.
Especially with firearms ownership. But 68, that's when before 1968, you could buy a gun with no paperwork. You could just walk into a gun store, driver's license, or an ID from that state and buy a gun.
And now somebody deemed with a most minor mental instability, they could have even just gone to see a psychiatrist over something.
Depression over divorce, losing a job.
Yeah, they're deemed hazardous, and people get the fear enacted inside of them for no reason, being judgmental. The same thing that they talk about us not doing, they're being judgmental. Oh, you're depressed, you have anxiety, you have trouble sleeping at night, you constantly think out loud and it makes people look at you funny. You might have gone through something traumatizing in your life. So no, we don't want you to be able to protect yourself, and watch what you say as well, because we're going to be tracking how you exercise your First Amendment as well. And on top of that, we're going to want you to tell us everything that you're doing, so we're going to violate your Fifth Amendment. And on top of that, we don't trust you in your own home, so we're going to completely violate your Fourth Amendment. We'll show up whenever we want. It's crazy.
Well said.
It's crazy.
Slicing that loaf of cheese, right? That's what we're talking about here. One slice at a time.
Speaking of the cheese, guys, lasagna will be coming in the next 2 to 3 minutes. It's looking great. Is in the oven right now, marinating.
He's producing the show, he's hosting the show, and he's cooking. Ladies, if you're watching,
thank you so much.
Okay, you got a big find right here. So one of you ladies out there, or somebody listening who has a sister and is interested, I don't even know if he's available. Okay, obviously he is available. So, because in all the years I've known you, have I ever asked you your sexual persuasion?
No, never.
Did I ever ask you your religion?
No.
I didn't even know your ethnic background. I figured Hispanic, Puerto Rican. My second wife was Puerto Rican, from Ponce.
There you go, man. See, there's no racism here. Embracing anybody and everybody. You know what you've always asked me anytime you see me?
What?
What's going on, Emmanuel? How you doing? How's life? How's your family? How are you feeling? Are you happy?
normal cordial exchanges the way I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
We were poor, but we had manners.
Exactly. Thank you. And you and I, we come along those same lines simply because I'm first generation born in the United States. My father is super old school. He came to the United States in the early 1950s from Puerto Rico, and he
To New York?
yes, and he installed those old school, which this is what makes a libertarian, honoring people's liberalness to be themselves, but conserving certain values such as cordialism, respect, hospitality, proper manners, and overall empathy towards others. You know, you always treat
Don't
others.
be a shitty human being.
Exactly. Don't be a shitty human being. Treat others how you want to be treated. Give the janitor the same amount of respect as you give the CEO, the business owner, and the custodian at your facility. He and I chop it up all the time.
Tyson?
Yeah, great guy. And he has never given me one little complaint about you simply because you and I have both worked jobs throughout our individual lifetimes, and we've always heard people express themselves via in private, or if they lose it and just explode their unhappiness in the current location of employment where they're at. I've never heard that from nobody at your staff.
You're only as good as your people.
Exactly.
I had to leave there early tonight to come here. I couldn't do it if I didn't have good people that I could trust. So.
Thank you for that, by the way. You know.
But all of you youngsters out there are older people. It's never too late to get involved.
Thank you, exactly. So, the last bit with Trump that I want to touch on before we get to straight bullet after bullet after bullet, not firing wise, but just certain questions that people have. Either way, we exercise our Second Amendment responsibly, the same way we drink responsibly. So with Trump, we give him credit for the judges that he's brought in. We give him credit for the First Steps Act, which wasn't fully his, by the way. Yes, he signed off on it, but based on what I've seen, he tries to take too much credit without acknowledging his amounts of participation in such great things like the First Steps Act. By the way, look it up. It provides a federal inmates credit system to get released from federal prison faster, a review of their convictions that landed them in the house in the slammer in the first place, and a pathway to get out faster and be brought back to society as a healthy, stable, at peace human being. We give him props for that. But you brought up earlier the Rogers Conceal case, and it was actually you who told me about 2 years back that was coming in second place to the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus the city of New York to be able to carry outside of the household. We're not saying carry on the body, like just going out.
Leave the 5 boroughs with your handguns.
Yes, and he brought about Justice Gorsuch. He brought about Justice Kavanaugh, which we saw a complete shit show when it came to him being brought into the Supreme Court. We didn't see too much encouraging behavior from him when it came to NY, SPA. No, I missed a letter. NYS Rifle Pistol Association. Get the acronyms. New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus City of New York. We didn't see too much reinforcement from him.
Trump?
Yeah.
He's not allowed to say anything, though, when it goes to the Supreme Court.
Oh, he's not.
The balance of power. He's not supposed to get involved. The reason that case
went moot.
It went moot because the New York City changed their administrative code and ratified it that it can't be changed back because the Supreme Court was worried about that. But basically, New York had a law that said that you couldn't take your lawfully owned property and leave the 5 boroughs with it. So if you had a handgun and you wanted to drive to New Hampshire to SIG Academy or you wanted to drive to my place, Gunfire in Woodland Park, you couldn't take your gun out of your home to use it somewhere else where it was legal to use it. So they dropped that. But Trump had no loose. The reason that case, New York was afraid that case was going to be a big 2A case, so they were scared. So they mooted it. They dropped it. They were scared. He's having technical issues now. He can cook though.
Of course, that's gonna get the double scream simply because so much fear, but a lot of bravery when it comes to the infringements. All right, so you just put me on that. Trump can't say much about it, but I would still try at least, spreading awareness. Hey, they've got this Supreme Court case coming up, and me personally, as your president, I hope it goes in a constitutional manner. Is he able to say?
He's probably said stupid stuff like that, but he's not supposed to say that. In the true balance of powers, he's not supposed to comment on anything in the Supreme Court.
Okay, good.
Although he's attacked judges and said there's too many Obama judges in the court, and Chief Justice Roberts came back and issued a statement. He says, we don't have Obama or Trump judges on this court. We just have judges on this court because they're supposed to be impartial.
Yeah, that was gonna be my comeback to that, because obviously you just put me on to something I didn't know, but I've seen him plenty of times, ridiculing the Obama judges, a term that he has used.
He's not supposed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He's supposed to have a level of decorum that Trump does not have a level of decorum.
Yeah, and it's just like, all right, when we see that type of behavior and all that, why we don't see that when it comes to what is granted to the people inalienably, but reinforced via the United States Constitution, because it's the foundation of this nation. It's the supreme law of the land of this nation. When we see him doing, when it comes to the ridiculing and all that, right there, being vocal, but not being vocal in support of something that's going to grant citizens their rights back, that's where I hold him accountable at.
Understood. There was only so much he could do. He had said repetitiously, he's the only president that when he was campaigning and while president came to 3 NRA annual meetings in a row and presented at the annual meetings of the members, which is admirable. But he had said if he had gotten a concealed carry bill on his desk, he would have signed it in a heartbeat. His son Donald Jr. is very pro 2A. He's a hunter. I'm not a hunter, by the way.
Yeah,
and again, as a libertarian, I don't discriminate against hunters. It's just not my thing.
Exactly, it's not my thing.
And I've eaten deer meat and bear meat and pheasant that people caught, but I'm just not one to get up 5 o'clock in the morning and go kill Bambi. It doesn't do much. It's not my thing.
I'm not into hunting as well. Ironically enough, the lasagna that I'm making, which I'm about to bring out, is a vegetable lasagna. No animals were harmed.
Lasagna Florentine would be the Italian term for that. I'm half Italian. Well, I'm about 30% Italian. I'm United Nations too.
But yeah, like, I want to see more of enthusiasm with him when it comes to these type of things that could go in the people's favor if ruled in the people's favor, the same way he's enthusiastically vocal about ridiculing the other side. Because wouldn't that be the biggest line in the sand, that if you cross that, you could be penalized for the ridicule, the making fun of?
Yep.
If you and I chose to make fun of a handicapped person as an example, or somebody who has a different belief in contrast to us, we'd be held accountable for that. But with him, when he's doing all of that, he's full blown, like ready to go, gun ho, non-stop. But then it's just like, hey, then if you're getting away with all that, then reciprocate some of that when it comes to these type of things that we have on the table that will work for us. Shed some type of light on it and just be transparent with people. He's not transparent enough. I hear a lot of rhetoric from him, along with a lot of ridicule, the double R's when it comes to Trump. Rhetoric and ridicule, but not enough action and execution. I don't get enough AE from him.
He's done anyway. He's only got 2 months left.
Yeah, that's wow, that's such a shocker to me. This is why I, voted for Joe Jorgensen because I saw her being vocal. Hey, you get me in office, and I'm gonna make sure to do whatever I can to repeal every single federal level infringement against your constitutional rights, whether it be First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Seventh Amendment, Eighth Amendment, Ninth Amendment, Tenth Amendment. Our other amendments are trampled on as well. When is the last time somebody has been to court and a jury of their peers, I believe that's the Seventh or Eighth Amendment, a jury of your peers, that dialogue would pertain to at least doesn't have to be every single juror, but at least one or two that know you on a personal level. These are your peers, that could vouch for you, that could provide a valid argument when it comes to your day in court to either save you from the prison industrial complex or say, hey, as much as I know him, I cannot defend him here, so I could vouch for whatever penalty he's gonna face. You get me?
Most politicians wouldn't work with the First Steps program because the prison industrial complex lobbies and pays our politicians on both sides of the aisle tons of money as well.
Yeah.
Prison is big business, especially private prisons. So they make sure that we keep people incarcerated as long as possible so they can continue billing the state and the federal governments for incarcerating people.
Okay.
It's all rigged. Everything. When you start scratching the surface, like peeling an onion, every time you peel a layer, there's another layer under it. That's what you find in our government. All this stuff that came about Hunter Biden with all of these deals with his dad. I've been talking to my friends for weeks about this. Almost every Republican's guilty of the same thing too.
Wow.
You use your family name. If your last name was Bush, right?
Oh, I'd get away with murder.
If you were from the Bush family, but you would get invited to meetings and be a part of things back in the day because me as a business owner, I know if I hire him as a consultant, I get a direct line to the White House. Right? That's how it works. It's all pay for play. Everybody does it, and they're all corrupt.
I'm glad you said that because this is something that Maj Touré always highlights. Exposing the contradictional bias to the maximum degree. Exposing all parties who are guilty to the maximum degree. And you just brought to light that it's not only the Democrats, it's the Republicans too.
It's all of them, and it's all accepted. And there's even stuff going back to, I believe, the first George Bush, where John Kerry is a Democrat and George Bush, like their families, they're all entwined in the same stuff. I get your kid a job, you get my kid a job, Democrat, Republican.
It's a giant network, a cesspool.
They're sitting in those steakhouses in Washington, D.C., ordering $200 steaks and $30 martinis that we, the taxpayers, are paying for, and we're just the pawns in this little crappy chess piece.
Yep. So we're at the halfway margin here well, no, actually more than the halfway margin. We have half an hour left, pardon me. Well, a little under half an hour, actually. So we're going to get to the bullet points. I'm going to bring out the lasagna now. I know that it's ready. I was letting it marinate and all that. So I just want you, while I go get this and all that, to just tell people, everything that happens at Gun for Hire, why they should go there. To me, my opinion, respect my opinion the same way I respect everybody else's opinion. Best shooting range in the tri-state area and arguably in the United States. If we had full auto, it would be in the United States.
I'd have it.
Colandro, let them know as I return.
So, Gun for Hire Radio, gunforhire.com. For you people in New York and New Jersey, I have a web page, gunforhire.com/gun permit. And if you go on that, it's all the steps to get your gun permit in New York or New Jersey. New Jersey's on top, scroll all the way down to the bottom and click New York. I had an attorney, Peter Tillum from New York, write it all up. All the links and everything are there. It's gunforhire.com/gun permit. Get your permit now before they raise the prices. Also, our government, our politicians, they look and see how many people have permits. when they're passing new laws and stuff. So the more people we get in, if you have a gun and you have a permit, that's good. Now get your significant other or your spouse or your friend or your roommate to get their permit too, even if they're not ready to get a gun. The more people we have that have firearms, ID cards, and permits, the better it is for all of us, because we need to keep our politicians in check and our government in check. That's what the Second Amendment was written for. All of you, unity and activism is key. We all need to work together. Not that we're going to agree on everything all the time. There's other organizations I belong to. I don't agree with everything all the time. It doesn't work that way. It's like a marriage. It's all about give and take. As long as we're all fighting for the same cause, who gives a shit who gets credit for it, and who gives a shit if we don't agree 100% on what that other organization has to say. It has to be unity and activism and fight to the death, because our future as we know it is slowly disappearing in this country. Our government is in every aspect of our goddamn lives. We have to go back to our libertarian values. We have to go back to that rugged individualism where you're responsible for your own family and your own actions. Listen, I used to ride a motorcycle, but I don't believe in helmet laws, but I wore a helmet. I don't believe in seatbelt laws, but I wear a seatbelt when I drive a car. I don't think the government should tell me what I can listen to, what I can wear, what I have to do. It's all bullshit. If I take responsibility for my own actions, leave me alone. And now the Lasagna King is back.
So, as a great host, which is, of course, traditional values, you are a great host. You serve your guests first. Anthony is, Italian, so
30%.
I want to get the full-blown validation. Give it a minute or two to cool off. I was having it marinate.
Well, it looks good.
How's it smell?
Smells great.
Yeah, and I just want to give a shout-out because finally the guest has arrived. My man Chino is in the building.
How are you, young man?
Hello guys,
So-
good evening, good evening. What's up, man?
Chino actually, he came to Diversity Shoot a few times already. And us, being of the backgrounds that we come from, we're constantly told that firearms are bad, that if you have a firearm, being a person, a minority, a person of color, even though we're all colored, in my opinion, that we're gang members, criminals, unless we're law enforcement or military. Would you agree now that it's something that could be recreational, that we could exercise a lot more often? Like, whether you want to use it to defend yourself or just have the knowledge about, would you say that it shouldn't be so taboo?
It shouldn't be so taboo.
It shouldn't,
Everybody
right?
should have the right to do what they have to do, like to bear arms.
Exactly.
We're all each his own, as long as everybody
You behave, you chill.
disciplined, as long as everybody has their own moral ethics.
Did you enjoy it when you shot?
I was lovely. That
Was
my
it
first time.
it was your first
my
time?
first time. It was
Good.
quite an
Wow.
experience. Tried 4 different assault rifles. Really nice.
There's no such thing as assault
I mean,
rifle. It's
assault
AR-15.
AR-15, there you go.
It's all right. I'll
Armor-
fix you.
Armor, like, because again, the taboo.
Yes.
But so you had a great time, right?
But,
Yes,
but
I
you
did.
see how he said assault rifle? That's
Yeah.
the media.
Yeah, that's the media. I was gonna say that right now to you. I was gonna say that
It's
right
the
now.
media brainwashing
because-
to fit the narrative. And we're
Exactly.
fighting that
And they
all
put
the
these
time.
words, and of course, a lot of
Did you
people-
feel uncomfortable? And even though it was a diversity shoot, anybody look at you like this because you have tattoos or anything like? No, nobody. Was there other people that looked like you there?
A lot of people. look
Right.
just like-
Not as handsome though, right?
I love it. Because I wanna break. That was the word I've been looking for. Pause. When something is on the tip of your tongue and you're trying to get that word out and you just can't get a grasp on it. That word, taboo. It's been tabooed for so long. My father came here. I'm first generation born in the United States, and you know what is one of the first things they taught him when he came to the United States? Hey, firearms are bad, be careful. Eso es para los gangueros, that's for the gang members in Spanish. Unless you're a cop or a member of military, you should not be involved in it. And it's the same thing that we all go through. All of us, all the time. My family, well, not all of them, the younger side that wasn't heavily indoctrinated, because back in the day we could all agree there was heavy indoctrination occurring, especially for those coming in.
Still.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Still, but the older generations of my family, they are divided between pro-constitutionalists and anti-constitutionalists, big government supporters, simply because one, the mediocre, well, not even mediocre, minor benefits that big government has provided them, along with the whole fear factor, the whole indoctrination, the whole message put out that the government is always right, and if you try to do different from them, expressing yourself, enjoying yourself, that you're wrong. All that ever did was install what inside of them? Fear.
If you think the government's always right, then you must enjoy your visits to motor vehicles and the post office.
Thank you, yes.
Because that's government-run business.
Motor vehicles, you have to clear your day. No, oh yeah, I'm going to take care of motor vehicles, and then I'm going to go shopping, and then I'm going to meet up with such and such. No, DMV the whole day. That's what it is. You look at those wait times, and now, oh my goodness,
Wrapped around the building, people sleeping overnight.
Exactly. And this is a great thing about this, because this is gonna be up forever. It's been amazing thus far. Our viewership continues to grow, so shout out to that. Thank you everybody that's watching. I am truly, truly humbled. And Colandro, you for being here as well. We got about 14 minutes left. We're gonna get to these bullets and all that, but
go ahead, keep talking. I'm gonna try this.
Oh yes. Oh, this is
I'm not shy.
This is the moment we've been waiting for.
Well, the pasta's cooked perfectly, so.
Thank you. You can be honest.
It's really good.
Thank you. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
You guys
From
talk.
an
I'm busy.
authentic Italian.
Are you guys as hyper as him or no?
Nah, they're more calm than me. It's just
he's hyper.
it feels good to get the validation right there, because people will see you.
This is good.
Yeah, people will see you. Thank you. And you saw it, because earlier something took my time that I should have been preparing it more for, but you see, fresh out the oven. I am going to enjoy the crap out of it shortly.
You can watch me eat for now.
Exactly. And I'm glad you're enjoying it before, above anything else. Again, thank you for everybody tuning in and viewing and all that. We got the validation. The lasagna is amazing, and all my libertarians, all my good Democrats and Republicans, I'm gonna make sure that you guys get to try it someday as well. Hopefully, we could organize a gigantic function to discuss these infringements and the actions we're gonna take against them, to overturn them and move the United States back to its original form. Getting back to the basics, a term heavily used in the sports world. Oh, let's get back to basics, the fundamentals. Fundamentals right there, bitch. Let's get right back to it. Now more than anything, what happens? We ride the subways at night, and we're disarmed. You don't know, 20, 30 guys come up to you. Ain't nobody Superman. You gotta have the means to protect yourself by. I would personally expand stand your ground to the point that if somebody is charging towards you, lay them out. Because you don't know what they have on them. You don't know if they're carrying a disease, and you're here, oh, let me not, respond to them, fully embracing my right to self-defense. Let me use less force. Let me try to figure out what's going on. They come and cough and sneeze on you. Next thing you know, you're in the hospital. I'm not trying to take that roll of the dice. And that's the predicament we're in right now. That's what we're contained into right now. Shit is ridiculous. You never know what somebody's got going against you. You know how many times I've been in street fights and people have pulled out knives and all that, and I thank God people watching the fights going on have broke it up and all that, called that at a certain point, because you never know. Oh, and just because it's not a firearm, it's not going to get broadcasted like that. Unless some brutalization occurs, But the minute somebody sneezes and the whole outline of their firearm shows if they are concealed carrying, oh my God, potential mass shooter spotted. devious individual walking around sneezing and potentially a threat to society, armed and dangerous. The fuck? It's retarded. You know, like there's a time to joke around and all that, but there's also a time to get serious, put all the bullshit to the side, start becoming informed, aware, because if not, the analogy that you gave, slicing that cheese away, before you know it, that big pound lump sum of cheese just became that final slice left that's about to be cut. How do you boil frogs? You put them in a nice pot and slowly increase the flames, that by the time they're boiling to their depths, they don't even realize what's going on. You know, and this is insane already. So, you know, Colandro, you being the owner of Gun for Hire, which I said, in my opinion, best range in the tri-state area.
Now I gotta pay.
And
Go ahead.
arguably in the United States, you know, because I don't want to take away from any other shooting range within the United States. You know, the times I've been to Florida, they have full auto, but that shouldn't only be the leverage, you know, the reasoning to why, but you know, you want to give everybody their just due. Again, it's the legislation, the infringements against us, but arguably the best range, and now will it be on record the biggest range in the United States once the full-blown facility opens up?
It will be the largest indoor range in the United States.
Largest indoor range in the United States. Wow,
if it ever gets done.
that is amazing, amazing people, amazing. I love it, being it's gonna be right here in our own backyard. If you're in upstate New York,
You haven't been there.
No, I gotta be in there though. I gotta try it out though. I gotta see it out.
You gotta bring him.
yeah, no, oh, he's coming up next. We're just waiting for the
Definitely.
capacity restrictions to
I know,
loosen
it
up.
sucks.
You know, so some bullet points that people wanted me to ask you about. Number one is, do you believe that only Republicans are gonna support and uphold the Constitution in purest form? Yes or no? Explain why.
No, I don't trust. I've said it earlier. I don't trust politicians on either side, and both sides will say whatever they're going to say to get elected. But once they're there, they won't do it. So no, I don't trust any of them
That's
to uphold the Constitution.
thank you so much.
It's all about self-preservation for them.
Party loyalty, blind loyalty, is hazardous, right or wrong.
Yeah, I have no loyalty to any party.
Thank you. You could be a registered Libertarian, Democrat, Green, Republican, Reform, Tea Party, Independent, but at the end of the day, it's all about vetting and holding to policy that they said they would bring about. The politicians, the people that we're choosing for to hold these positions of power, hold them accountable, be on top of them. I could get in contact with Larry right now. When he becomes governor, I already have his number. You got me? So, along with that, alright. The Second Amendment community, would you say, in all honesty, it is a lot more welcoming than the average bear perceives it to be?
Yes, a lot more welcoming. But the media plays it out that we're all fat, racist, sexist, misogynist, white guys with flannel shirts or camouflage and suspenders and spitting tobacco with big beards. And I always like to say summer teeth, some over here and some over there. And we're just waiting for you to come in so we can look you over and say, what do you want, son? Or whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
The media portrays us that way for 40 years of indoctrination and brainwashing.
Yes, thank you. When it comes to urban United States, you full-blown support on record them coming more than ever to any range in the United States. You know, you have New York City,
Yes.
very, very, very close to your range. You're welcoming and encouraging to individuals to come, to become educated, and more, what's the word I'm looking for here? More, you know, when you constantly practice something and you become good at it,
Adapt.
more adapt to firearms, right or wrong.
Yes. When you visit my range, it's a cross between Noah's Ark and the United Nations. You'll see every size, shape, and color there. and everybody should come out and practice because we said before you are your own first responder. Listen, I'm not going to be a fearmonger about guns, but I look at a firearm, whether it's a shotgun, a rifle, or a handgun. I think everybody should own one that can legally own one because it's like a fire extinguisher. I'd rather you had it and never have to use it. So, and I believe a firearm's the same way. Better to have, if you're not a gun nut, if you have one gun, a couple boxes of ammunition, and a flashlight locked away, it's much better than not having one. Same thing if you had a fire in your kitchen and you didn't have a fire extinguisher, you'd be wishing you had it. So,
Thank you. Now, next bullet point I wanted to touch on. A big rebuttal I get from a lot of these law enforcement, infringement enforcement, sorry, but facts are facts, officials is negligent discharge. How do you go about that? Because I'm gonna keep this as anonymous as possible. I'm pretty sure the individual. Wow, we have a good amount of viewers right now, so props to that. Thank you for tuning in, by the way. So I'm gonna keep this anonymous as possible, but they've had it occur in their facilities, negligent discharges. So how would you explain going about that and removing that emotional fear, which they leverage on, using that as an excuse for these infringements to be upheld for people living in apartment buildings, for people choosing to do what you did, opening their own gun ranges?
negligent discharge in what fact, like in your house or something?
In your house, at the gun range. I'm not sure if it's ever happened at your range, but for them to
it's
tell me,
happened.
okay, so it has happened.
Negligent discharges have happened. As long as the gun's pointed in a safe direction, you're okay. I've had people shoot through the table, the floor, the ceiling, the lights down. It happens. You have to treat all guns like they're loaded all the time. Finger off the trigger and always keep it pointed in a safe direction. But yeah, negligent discharges happen. Accidents sometimes happen at ranges too. And it's just a fact of life. But the percentage of accidents happening are a less than, a non-existent percentage. But just like you have a better chance of being in a car accident than having an accident in a gun range. But yeah, you have to just stay on your toes with that. And again, it's important to get educated, follow what the range safety officers are showing you, and learn all the range protocol. He loves that horn. Next time I come out, I'm taking it. I'm gonna bring the real one.
Yeah, there you go.
Obviously you're not a supporter of infringements and all that. When again, our friends on the side of the badge talk about you don't need an AR-15 or any rifle that can project a Freedom cartridge over 300 yards.
That's bullshit.
Explain why, please.
Because I should be able to own whatever I want as long as I'm a law-abiding citizen. I shouldn't have to ask permission for shit. I'm truly a constitutionalist where if I wanted to own hand grenades, I should be able to. But I realize there are limits to the Second Amendment, just like there's limits to the First Amendment where you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. So,
or bomb on an airplane, which is understandable.
correct. So within reason, I believe I should be able to own every modern firearm, especially the same that the military has, because when the Second Amendment was written, the civilians had the same weapons as the military because the civilians were the military.
Always better to be safe than sorry, too.
You have fire extinguishers in your household. You have smoke detectors. You make sure that the brakes are good on your vehicle. Nothing is foolproof, but when your life is on the line, right or wrong, Colandro, shouldn't you be equipped as much as possible to preserve your safety and live to see another day?
Yes, indeed. What criminal, before they leave to go commit a crime, says, hey, man, make sure you only have 10 rounds in that magazine. We don't want to get charged with a felony because that's the law in New Jersey. That law was passed to hang up law-abiding citizens. Just like you can't have a pistol grip, or you can't have a flash suppressor, or you can't have a bayonet lug. In New Jersey, we can't have a bayonet lug on an AR-15. It makes it an assault rifle because so many people get bayoneted in the state of New Jersey, right? We always put the bayonet on and stab somebody. It's just a bunch of bullshit.
So what happens if somebody pulls out a machete or a blade, bang, oh, he's in the clear.
That's okay. But if you have a bayonet lug, not a bayonet, just a lug for a bayonet on your AR-15, that makes it an assault rifle in New Jersey.
Wow. Now, you mentioned the term assault rifle, which, you know, our man Chino right here.
Yeah, he's out.
Now, also mention, you know.
It's a great point because it's a media
Yeah.
indoctrination.
Of course.
It was
Indoctrination.
it's perfect.
Can you debunk the term assault rifle?
Assault rifle is really, it's not even a thing, but let's say assault rifle should be compared to a machine gun, which is a full auto, which means every time you squeeze the trigger, it keeps firing until you release the trigger. The guns that we use are semi-automatic. When you went to the range, every time you squeeze the trigger, one bullet came out,
One bullet
right?
at a time.
10-round magazine. AR came from Armalite Rifle, which was designed by the Armalite Rifle Company and by Eugene Stoner in the 50s and then released in the Vietnam War in the early 60s. But that's AR, so everybody thinks AR stands for assault rifle, but it actually stands for Armalite Rifle. Now you know,
You
see?
learn something every day.
Yep. So that's I'm a firm believer in that. You learn
Yes,
something
you do.
every day.
Exactly. So people stop being scared.
Is that the chicken from Family Guy?
Right?
Stop being scared, people. You know, as the owner of the gun range, you've clarified so much tonight. Possibly we might have missed a few things, but you know,
I'll come back.
of course. Thank you so much. Lasagna's good.
Excellent. I'm going to finish it as soon as we go off air.
So you probably brought this up before, but even more people jumped on now. You guys can clearly watch the rerun because I want him to enjoy his lasagna and then be able to
Are we done?
go home. How do people reach you, get in contact with you?
Gunforhire.com, Anthony at gunforhire.com. Easy enough.
And your Instagram is
Gun for Hire.
at Gun for Hire on
Yes.
Instagram.
I'm off Twitter. I was banned. I'll be off Facebook soon. What else am I banned on? I don't know yet.
Cash is still banned on Instagram.
I know. I just got out of Instagram prison.
Oh man.
Before we wrap up, Chino, you along with me, because the people see me so much in the light that you're finally here. Should we be tabooing and being all out here on some
No,
over firearms?
absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Right or wrong. And would you guys agree? Every single gun law is an infringement and hopefully, God willingly, should be repealed and brought back
Should be.
to the United States in Constitution in purest form.
Of course, man.
Agreed.
Of course.
Well, people, you heard it here from the legend's mouth
The
himself.
old man.
The youngster right here, Colandro. You know, I love you.
Love you too.
If you round up, we're 10 years in the game. You know, I've been going to Gun for Hire since 2012.
That's it?
Hey, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And once I found out, oh wow, this range doesn't require me to be already armed. I could just go in and start shooting within minutes. Obviously, following safety precautions, and you have great range safety officers.
Thank you.
Some who I can comprehend take their job very, very seriously, but at the same time, just breathe a little bit. But amazing staff, love them all. Great people, very welcoming. No matter your shape, your race, your ethnicity, your religion, your beliefs, whether you like ice cream or don't like ice cream. But
He doesn't like ice cream.
I don't.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so you know, Colandro, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. How I always say, OG, we need you more than you could ever imagine. I always do my best to include you in my prayers.
I need it. Thank you.
Yeah, so stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe. You know, I'm here, and any type of mentorship you could provide to me, I'll gladly receive it and act upon it.
Anything you need, I'm here for you.
Thank you so much. Guys, Gun for Hire Range, Woodland Park, New Jersey.
Awesome
only
range.
15
Awesome.
miles from the George Washington Bridge. Not sure how many miles from the Lincoln Tunnel, but you'll get
14.
there. 14. Wow, look, even less. You're gonna get there pretty quick. Amazing range, amazing staff, amazing owner. True advocate for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is the Fix for New York podcast, the libertarian podcast, even though we show love to our valid Democrat and Republican brothers, along with all other parties who abide by the United States Constitution. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time, I am your host, Cash First 456 on Instagram. The Fix for, the number 4, The Fix for New York on Instagram. Until they restore my account, we'll follow both, show love on both. Catch you next time. Thank you for tuning in. Take care.
Rap.